Welcome to this introductory training course for therapists, counselors, and coaches, or anyone that would like to use BioGraffs with clients in their in-person sessions.
BioGraffs is a method of visual story creation to help people gain clarity on issues.
And then it gives them a visual aid to help them communicate insights to another person.
Feels like a loop of distraction.
BioGraffs is about thinking about an aspect of one's lived experience, the bits and pieces of life, and taking a good, clear-eyed look at it.
Do you ever wish you could just get your clients to slow down and be more in their experience? BioGraffs is about untangling internal complexity.
So let's get into this. You showed up here because you were curious how BioGraffs could be useful to you and your clients. Maybe you're looking for ways to expand your repertoire of tools. You have clients who are so caught up in their stories that you just want to help them get unstuck.
Do you have couples that could be better at listening to each other, never really hearing each other's perspective?
Maybe you want to help someone gain clarity or talk about something tough. Making a BioGraff is a three-step process. Deciding on the story to be told, thinking of the parts of the story, and building the visual story. The first step is to think of the thing you want your clients to use the BioGraff materials for. This should come out of the work that you are doing with them. It might be helpful to browse through our online resource of prompts, grouped by categories, to get an idea of the breadth of possible prompts. BioGraffs is infinitely flexible. Your clients talk to you about the same issue over and over. That's the perfect time to suggest, do you want to make a BioGraff about that? Their relationship with their mother, the fight they have with their partner again and again, their anxiety in social situations, their disappointment with themselves, their traumatic childhood, their obsessive thoughts, their sadness, their grief, their shame. Anything that comes up repeatedly is a good reason to make a BioGraff. You have a client with an eating disorder, you might have them make a BioGraff about what goes through their mind when they binge. What does their body mean to them? You have a person who's chronically depressed, you might prompt them to make a BioGraff of a day in the life of a bad depressive episode, or all their negative thoughts. You have a client with a history of trauma.
For things that are hard to talk about, BioGraffs is a way to ease into a story.
Have a client struggling with grief, make a BioGraff about where they are in their grief and where they hope to be. A client with social anxiety, make a BioGraff about an anxious situation or about how anxiety feels in their body. You have a couple working through an infidelity crisis? Have them make BioGraffs of what they see as a way forward.
Or what they need from their partner to feel safe.
So you've thought of a prompt to give your clients and want to suggest that they make a BioGraff. Just to ask them if they'd like to try something new to get a different perspective on their issue. Tell them you have a way for them to make a visual story about what's going on. For the sake of illustration, let's consider a client we'll call Alice. Alice has panic attacks with pounding heart, rapid breathing, and lightheadedness almost daily. You suggest making a BioGraff about a recent instance when she felt panic rising up in her. You ask Alice to begin to think of what happens in that scene. Ask her, what are the parts of that experience? Can she write down a couple of words to stand for each part? Like one part might be what triggered the panic attack. The next might be the thoughts she had. So she would write something to stand for that. Again, just a couple of words. The way I think about it is that when we attach words to thoughts and feelings, we're packaging them for export. They are considerably less complex than when they're first bouncing around in our head. The words we choose are like a basket on a big hot air balloon. Connected to that basket is the hot air balloon of all the intricate details of everything that feeling is connected to. So Alice is just going to write a word or two, but she knows it's connected to this big balloon of all this other stuff. Now Alice has a board with 10 cubes and 10 labels attached to them that are part of this experience of having a panic attack at work. Ask her to use all the cubes to make a timeline of this experience. Show her the sample card of how other people have made arrangements with cubes. You can also show her the storyboard card for the timeline type of BioGraff. Tell her she can arrange the cubes however feels right to her to express something about this experience. What we want people to do is harness the complexity of spatial metaphors to express meaning.
You don't have to say anything about this part to your client. Spatial metaphors are so embedded in our language that they'll just use them instinctively.
The most obvious example is good is up and bad is down. It's right there in our language about mood. I'm feeling down, depressed, I'm weighed down with sadness. So people tend to put bad things lower on a BioGraff palette and good things higher up. That's a spatial metaphor. And when people start playing around with the cubes, they'll naturally kind of go and do that because that's how our minds work. Your job is to notice their spatial metaphors. Let's think of some others. They might have one color of cubes surrounding the other because one of the thoughts or feelings is kind of core. They feel it very deep in their heart or in their chest. And the other is more outwardly focused, where maybe the other kind of surrounds it because one thought protects the other or hides it. Maybe they arrange one thought like the legs of a table because one feeling is a flat surface of openness and the other feeling is more solid as if it supports the other. They might arrange some cubes very tidy and straight. Does that indicate order and clarity or rigidity or a feeling of being constrained? Do chaotically arranged cubes mean confusion or do they mean freedom? They might be using these spatial metaphors without being very aware of it. Even just the quantity of cubes they're using is a metaphor for their experience. Adrienne's trigger might be just one cube, and then her catastrophic thought might be a chaotic pile of a lot of cubes. That chaos and quantity expresses something about her experience. You notice that. Many people in this stage tend to narrate what they're doing and thinking as they build their BioGraff. If they do that, this creation stage can be very interactive with you. Often people make comments about their labels that suggest to me either rewriting their label, adding more, or splitting one label in two, and I'll encourage them to do that. What we're seeing in this exercise is people slowing down and being more in this experience or this story that they're telling. Separating out the parts creates clarity. Arranging them adds a visual, creative, and tactile experience to the recall of each part. It lends a focus to each part while allowing the other cubes to hold space for the other parts not currently being thought about. In the case of Alice, we prompted her to arrange the cubes like a timeline because she was telling the story of a particular experience. But that's not the only kind of BioGraff you can make. In your BioGraff kit, you'll find 8 storyboard cards. When BioGraffs was first developed, it was presented as an interactive art installation, and we collected nearly 1,000 BioGraffs people had made and submitted to the project. Analyzing these revealed 8 basic ways that people approach the task of making a visual story with cubes. A timeline was the most common. Others are like a bar graph of values. Some are like 2 little BioGraffs side by side comparing 2 things, and others are more freeform, what we call mosaics. Look through the cards to pick one that seems most in line with the prompt you want to give your client. Showing them the appropriate card can help them understand the task. Showing the 2 sheets of samples will get them thinking broadly and creatively. Is this making sense to you, G? You were the one that didn't really know anything about this as you came into it.
I think I have a good understanding.
People tend to take 10 to 15 minutes to build their BioGraff. Once they're done arranging the cubes, the second phase of the method begins, talking about it. When you're working with an individual, ask them to tell you about what they've done. For a timeline type BioGraff, this will sound very much like a story. Encourage them to touch each cube as they talk about it and say more about what each cube means. While they hold their place in the story by literally touching the cubes, they describe more of what's in that big hot air balloon of connected ideas. When they finish telling the story of their BioGraffs, now is the time for you to use the spatial metaphors that you noted. Simply notice things. I notice these 2 colors are very mixed together. I notice this one cube seems to be very set apart. I notice this color is underneath this other color. Do more meanings come out of the BioGraff for your client as you point things out? Does it look like the color choices are meaningful? I see you use black for that label. Notice the relative quantities. Avoid asking direct questions like, why did you do that? The goal is to notice things and have them volunteer meanings.
And just showing like the duality of like, my end of day is going to go this way.
Thank you, because my
At this point, you might want to take a picture of the BioGraff for your files or for them to take with them to consider later. Now, look for ways for them to change or remake the BioGraff. There are a lot of things that can happen at this point. Take the example of Alice. Say in the past you've given her a tool to use to cope with her catastrophic thinking. What if she made a new cube that was the tool and added that? How would that change the way she arranged the cubes that represent catastrophic thoughts? Would there be fewer? Would they be less chaotically arranged? How then would the rest of the timeline change? You can have her take this experience and physically change it into a better one, an experiential exercise of her desired change in her coping mechanisms. Another way to work with the BioGraff is to connect with an element and change its relationship to the other elements. I was working with a person once who had a cube that represented things unsaid, and it was below a timeline of other interactions with the person's partner. And I suggested that she see what it felt like to contact that cube and move it up into a prominent place in her BioGraff to represent saying the things. And it surprised us both the powerful reaction she had to that. Psychologically, the physical experience of moving that cube represented the abstraction of things unsaid and maybe helped her make a mental pathway for saying the things unsaid. Totally remaking the BioGraff can be helpful. On another board, I might suggest Alice make another timeline of the same experience as she aspires for it to happen. This could give people the physical experience and visual touchstone of what they're trying to achieve. Take pictures of the BioGraffs people make in session. This is a way for you to both measure progress as you can compare the new BioGraff to one they made previously. It's a way to really show them how they've grown. Making a BioGraff in session, it can open up new territory for exploration with a client. Some clients might love the method and you use it frequently. Some people have less of an affinity for it. You might find a particular area of your work with clients that you want to use it regularly. Maybe you start having everyone make a mosaic BioGraff of their family of origin, or ask them to make a BioGraff of a significant moment in childhood as part of their family history intake. If you work with couples, having each partner make a BioGraff about what's brought them in to see you could become your go-to method. I hope this brief introduction helps you see how easy it is to use BioGraffs in session. Although the idea will be new to your clients, most people quickly see how to do the process almost as soon as they touch the cubes. In actual practice, it takes very little explanation. Just say you want them to try something new and bring out the materials. Remember the 3 steps in the process. Give them a prompt, ask them to think about the parts of the story, build the BioGraff. Remember to use the storyboard cards to get them started and to give them a structure for the form of their BioGraff. Visual metaphor is an important part of the BioGraff. Your clients will use it without recognizing it as metaphor, but your awareness to look for the metaphors will help them interpret their own work and get the most out of it. Looking for ways to change or remake the BioGraff can help integrate the work you've done. If you don't have a BioGraffs Mag Plus yet, you can order one below. It comes with 300 magnetic cubes and 2 whiteboards, plus storyboard cards, sample sheets, and more. You'll want to have this powerful tool on your shelf, and I feel confident you'll reach for it again and again. If you have any questions about all I've presented here, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you.